Hey, hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.
And welcome to the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream. I'm Bradley Stalder. Tonight, I'm joined by guest Jake Fabian at 16 Fabian Jacob on Twitter. Y'all check out his work. He's been crushing it. Jake is one of my favorite follows on Twitter. Totally underrated. I'm happy to have him on yet again. He was on last year, and we crushed the advice for the Stardom Situms last season. It's a privilege having Jake on. Jake, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great, Brad. Thank you for having me on. I don't get the opportunity to do this much, so I really appreciate you giving me the time to get on here and speak out to the YouTube listeners.
The YouTube listeners, the YouTube viewers. Jake, this channel has grown like 3x since you last joined. And so the community has grown. We're excited to have you on. We've been answering start sits, also doing some Thursday night stuff. But Jake, you are from Pennsylvania or live in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes, sir. Pittsburgh born and raised.
Pittsburgh born and raised. And so we just got news today, and we can talk about this. I mean, we're just flying by the seat of our pants here until y'all throw some questions and comments for our start sits in the video, in the YouTube chat. Pat Freiermuth suffered a setback today. We're expecting Deontay Johnson to return from IR. George Pickens has had some really nice spike weeks. How are you imagining the adaptation of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense to acclimate to Deontay returning? Do you expect a fast start, or is this just going to be one of those like Christian Watson gets integrated in, it takes a couple games, etc.? How are you approaching Deontay Johnson this week? We expect him to be active.
Yeah, so adaptation in a Matt Canada offense may be a stretch to expect. For my money, Deontay Johnson is probably just going to step right back into the role that he had before. And unfortunately for George Pickens, that's going to mean he's back to his boundary exclusive role where he's either running a clear out or running a 12-yard hitch. And it's really unfortunate for me as a Steelers fan that that's the offense we get to watch on Sundays. Although there may be some opportunity over the middle with Freiermuth out. I think that may open up some targets for Allen Robinson to remain relevant to the extent that he's been. We may see a little bit more Calvin Austin than we might otherwise. But really, from what I've seen from this offense so far this year, there's not a lot of reason for optimism for any of the options.
Not a lot of reason for optimism. I was taking a lot of Calvin Austin in late best ball, like just the high ADOT type of plays. Like, we saw that against Vegas a couple weeks ago. But yeah, we can't trust this Pittsburgh offense. And right now, Deontay Johnson is my wide receiver 32. I still am going to do some tweaking here and there. So he is like a flex play. But as we mentioned, like I have Christian Watson ahead of him, Debo, Zay Flowers, Jacoby Myers, Jordan Addison, those types ahead of Deontay Johnson in that first week back from IR. And I mean, it's possible that even Josh Palmer, could outperform him at that point. I think that's the litmus test or line of demarcation for Deontay at this point. All right, we've got some questions in the chat, and y'all, if you're new and you haven't subbed on the YouTube channel, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. Jake and I are here to answer your start sit questions. We'll see how long this goes. Jake, we ran a marathon, I think, last time and went a little wild, but we'll see how the people on both YouTube, Facebook, not both, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch are getting involved in the chat here. The first one is C Crip. Hey, Bradley and Jacob. Unfortunately, I played Ridley, which I warned people about. Jake, this is wild. I don't know if you saw this tweet that I sent out about Calvin Ridley when
the Zay Jones split.
The Zay Jones split. And I was getting clowned. People were like losing their minds over small sample size, blah, blah, blah. Small sample size strikes again. He averages less than 8 fantasy points per game when Zay Jones is not on the field. When Zay Jones is out there, over 21 fantasy points. So Ridley was a fade this week. We knew that going into the game. Plus, the Saints are always a tough defense. So he played Ridley, but also played Kamara. Needs a flex. Evans, Jacoby Myers, or Stevenson. Is this full PPR? Mike Evans did let us down last week. Jacoby Myers did not let us down. I don't know how we move away from Jacoby Myers here. I do like the upside of Mike Evans. I think Stevenson's the odd man out. What's your vote between Evans and Myers here, Jake?
Brian Hoyer scares me. I know it's just Chicago on
put
defense.
some respect on his name, Jake. That's Super Bowl champion.
Super Bowl champion. Yes. I don't know. I love Jacoby Myers. I have a group chat with some other analysts where they've taken to calling him Jacoby Fabian because I've touted Myers so strongly in the past. But for me, I really like the matchup here with Baker Mayfield and the Bucs offensive line. I think that Baker will have plenty of time to throw versus Atlanta's basically non-existent pass rush. So I would roll with Mike Evans here.
Ooh, I like it. All right. Yes, Mike Evans is our vote. Based on the rankings, let me pull up my rankings. I have Evans at 14, Myers at 24. So I think that the Brian Hoyer effect is certainly there. Hoyer played admirably like a decade ago for the Browns. He was at one point 10-6 for the Browns, and then the Browns were like, hey, we'll move on from winning quarterbacks, like Brian Hoyer and Baker Mayfield. But yes, this is almost 40-year-old Brian Hoyer subbing in for the injured Jimmy Garoppolo. Seacrip also said another league needs a running back in full PPR. Darrell Henderson, Dylan, Zach Evans, Moss, Javonte Foreman, Rashad White, all these meh running backs. I mean, this is a coin flip, isn't it? Or how are you attacking this? I'm looking and I'm seeing a lot of unimpressive names in this list.
Yeah, so I just want to get off my chest early in the night that I have no idea what to do with the Rams running back situation this week. I don't know how anyone could say that they do. I've seen some people very confident that it's Zach Evans is going to get the bulk of the work. I've seen some very confident in Darrell Henderson, which obviously means it's going to be Myles Gaskin or Royce Freeman. So other than probably not Henderson or Evans, I think out of this group, I would lean Foreman just because he's process of elimination his way to a lead role in Chicago. Everyone else is pretty much hurt. We don't know exactly how well Tyson Bagent. Sorry if do you know the correct pronunciation?
Your guess is the best as mine.
Okay.
I think it's Bagent, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Special Bagent.
I love
Tyson.
it. You did hear that his father is like the arm wrestling champion of the world, right?
No, I missed that.
Yeah, he like they featured him against Tom Pelissero. There's a video floating around. It's hilarious. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, so I would probably lean Foreman there against a soft Raiders run defense.
Yeah, I like Foreman as a bounce back. Last week, the post-hype sleeper, given that Roshan is out, Khalil Herbert is out. Yeah, they're probably going to lean on the run. We don't know what we're going to get with Bagent. Rashad White also is not he's a volume guy, but I'm glad you didn't say him because I think he's the silent killer of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like they hand the ball to him and he gets 3 yards of carry, no breakaway runs really. Baker Mayfield dumps it off. He's a volume, like low end running back too. I think you have more upside with Foreman, even if Foreman doesn't catch a lot of passes. So I agree with you there. Think CMC plays Monday. If not, do I play Jeff Wilson instead? Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I can give my opinion. I think CMC does not play. I don't think it's in the 49ers' best interest to have him play. Debo isn't practicing. Trent Williams isn't practicing. CMC isn't practicing. This is an oblique injury, and it's probably like we've got capable runners behind CMC. It's Jordan Mason who's averaging over 5 yards a carry, and he's an 80 PFF rush grade, yards after contact per attempt for Jordan Mason. He was one of the running backs that I was touting in the waiver wire this week. Of yes, we like Elijah Mitchell. Like I've always been an Elijah Mitchell guy, but Jordan Mason is like this sneaky running back that's gotten double-digit touches a couple times this season. So I think what you do is you drop Jeff Wilson and you pick up Jordan Mason just in case, because I think that Jordan Mason would have more upside than Jeff Wilson if CMC is out. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree there. It's better to have one of the 49ers backup running backs if you can, because we probably won't know for sure on CMC's status until that Monday, 6 o'clock or so. And I definitely wouldn't want to start Jeff Wilson in his first game back against this Eagles run defense.
Yeah, not splitting with Raheem must start. Okay, Bambo from Twitch. Shout out to the Twitch people. They are few and far between, but they are a loyal bunch. So shout out to Bambo. Okay, this is a mega deal offered Amon-Ra. So he wants Amon-Ra, Ayuk, Watson, Walker, and Charbonnet, and Pitts. Holy buckets. But you get Kupp, Saquon, Devonta, Waller, and Sutton. Waller and Pitts are a wash, frankly. In my opinion, I think the lateral movement there, Sutton over Charbonnet, Watson over Devonta Smith. I mean, I think Ken Walker for now over Saquon, as crazy as that is, and Amon-Ra and Ayuk together is more than Kupp. I like you keep your Amon-Ra, Ayuk, Watson, Walker side.
Yeah, I would definitely keep your side of that there, Bambo.
Yeah. Okay, easy. There we go. Easy feedback. Do you know Dynasty Fantasy Football? Yes, Matt. We can talk Dynasty if you want. But, I mean, we're talking week 7. We can talk long-term. We can offer those perspectives. You can throw it in the chat. You can also, for those who are new and you haven't subscribed yet, smash the subscribe button, guys. It's really helpful for the channel. Okay, we got some more Twitch. Twitch is exploding tonight, Jake. You've brought the Twitch people out.
Hey.
Shout out to y'all. Bijan Robinson and Kittle for Stephon Diggs and Jahmyr Gibbs. I prefer the Diggs-Gibbs side.
I'd want to know who your current tight end is to know exactly how much of an upgrade we're getting with Kittle there. I don't have a lot of confidence in Gibbs rest of season just because it seems like the coaching staff there really wants to pigeonhole him into this sort of weapon role and let Monty take on the work. But we also don't know how long Monty's going to be out. And the last time Montgomery was out, we saw Gibbs get used in that sort of same exact role that Montgomery had, where he's running a lot in between the tackles. And in that Detroit offense, there's a lot of upside for touchdowns. So pending how much you need that upgrade at tight end, I think I would go Diggs and Gibbs.
Yeah, Diggs has been a top 5 wide receiver this year. Bijan Robinson he's running back 12 in fantasy points per game, and there's not like pathway for us to see Bijan Robinson becoming running back 3 overall based on Arthur Smith and his usage and that the team is 3-2, you know, like, or 3-3. Like, they're 500. There's not really a reason for. They're not 0-6. They're not 1-5. Like the Atlanta Falcons are probably okay with where they're at right now in learning about Desmond Ridder. And this was an interesting thing in looking up the Bijan Algier split. There have been the top 6 rushing shares for Atlanta Falcons running backs. 3 have been Bijan and 3 have been Tyler Algier. So it's been frustrating for Bijan drafters who took him in the first round so far. And I don't see, you know, a spike week pathway for him to sustain rest of the season.
Yeah, I will say on Bijan, though, they definitely are giving him the bulk of the work in the receiving game as opposed to Algier. Bijan currently is up to, if I could pull this up here, his target share on the season is 16.3%. So, I mean, that's top 5 among running backs. So, despite his opportunity share overall being right around 50%, that passing game usage is really, really encouraging for Bijan.
I agree. The passing game involvement is something that, you know, a lot of off-season chatter was saying, oh, he's going to be used in this way, but that's come to fruition is encouraging. If only he could get more of the rush share and a little bit more goal line work. It's too bad that Tyler Algier is actually #good at football. So Steven Pereira, we got to pick 2 here, Jake. Godwin, Rice, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Madison, or Pickens. I think we go Pickens and Godwin, but maybe the Pittsburgh bias. Give us your view. Is Pickens the guy here?
No, for me, I'm too close to the situation, and that just my cynicism is overwhelming what the rational answer is here. But I actually really do think this is Rashee Rice breakout week. I think that the Chargers defense, their secondary is not very good at all. And this is the week that we really see Rashee Rice get that full-time role in potentially a shootout game script with the Chargers offense. So I would lean Godwin and Rice here.
I like that call for the Rashee Rice breakout. Rice leads all of the Kansas City wide receivers in PFF receiving grade. He's running more outside routes. I know they traded for Mecole Hardman just this past week. Thank goodness for all my best ball shares. Let me tell you.
I cannot express how frustrating it was to watch the Jets trot out 33-year-old Randall Cobb in the slot every play instead of Mecole Hardman. Like I know the coaches see them every day in practice, and I don't want to be the fantasy guy who knows more than the coaches, but hard for me to imagine how Mecole Hardman wasn't a better option than Randall Cobb.
Maybe that's such an indictment of Mecole Hardman. Yikes. Okay, we'll keep her rolling. Joshua Wallen, Bijan. We hit on Joshua's question already about Diggs and Gibbs for Bijan and Kittle. Okay, better spot start at running back. Mason. We got a lot of Mason Evans, Latavius Murray. Ooh, with Damian Harris out and out long term. Ty Johnson is the running back 3, but we don't expect him to be involved very much. And actually, that's the whole, like, there was the domino effect that happened here. Jake, I don't know if you caught wind of this, but Leonard Fournette was supposed to visit the Bills, but that was because the LA Rams were interested in Ty Johnson. And instead, the Bills said, no, we want him. And so they activated him in the 53. And so Leonard Fournette did not end up visiting the Bills, but the Rams ended up signing Myles Gaskin and Darrell Henderson instead. So all of these domino effects happened this week. Jordan Mason, Zach Evans, Latavius Murray. Ew.
It's tough. It's tough out here. And I know I said earlier that I'm staying away from the Rams backfield. But I don't know, out of these three options, I think Mitchell is more the back to own if CMC is out. I know Mason played ahead of him last week, but that was more, I think, due to Mitchell missing most of practice that week. So I would expect maybe a 55-45 split there. And despite my lack of confidence in the Rams, I do think Evans is the best bet of that backfield. And Latavius Murray, I think, if you want to play touchdown roulette, I think he's a good bet to get a touchdown this week. I just don't know what he's going to give you outside of that. So my pick here would be Evans.
Interesting. This is bad because I'm the Latavius Murray truther at this point in my career. The coaches can't help but give him like 6 to 12 touches in a game. And you mentioned the goal line work. Damian Harris is out. The Bills refuse to give goal line work to James Cook. And so Latavius Murray being used in the passing game in 2-minute long down and distance. Latavius Murray is one of those players that like he's played okay this year. Even though he's like 33 years old, almost he'll be 34 here soon. I prefer Jordan Mason because I know I'm talking. I like Latavius Murray, but I like Mason more. And I think that you're spot on in identifying the Rams as just a complete mess. Like we just don't know. And it might be Zach Evans. I was rereading and listening to my own scouting report way back in March of Zach Evans before the draft. And it was not positive. Like it was not positive. And then trying to read between the tea leaves of what Sean McVay has said about Zach Evans, I'm also not, I don't know. I've not been encouraged by it. So I'm avoiding Zach Evans. Jake is a little bit more in favor. I think Jordan Mason, though, is going to be fantasy viable. You mentioned 45%, but the San Francisco 49ers run the ball the second most of any team in the NFL. So even if he gets, the lower proportion, I still think it's going to be 12 to 15 touches for Jordan Mason. It's still going to get you to 45%. And so I like Jordan Mason of these three. So I'm ranking them Mason, Murray, Evans. How would you rank them?
You make a very persuasive case there, Brad. I think I still lean Evans.
Okay.
And then Mason and then Murray.
Evans, Mason, Murray. All right. I don't know if we were helpful to you, KJ, but that's what we're here for. You listen to our thoughts and our reasons, and you got to make these decisions. Some people come into the comments like, I just want to be real talk. Some people come into the comments and are like, make decisions for me. And the answer is no. Like, we offer our thoughts, we offer our reasons, but you have to be the final decision maker and evaluate what is most valuable, what are the factors that you value in making these lineup decisions. And we're here to bring the analysis. We're here to bring you our recommendations based on that analysis, but you're going to have to make those decisions. And sometimes it's two analysts who disagree but have very strong reasons as to why, and you have to make that call. And it's part of winning and losing, part of the fun of redraft fantasy football there, KJ. We'll continue on, Matt, with Matt's question, Jake. So Matt was the one asking about the dynasties. 4-2. He has Olave, Amon-Ra, Godwin, Judy, JSN, Palmer, Hall, and Kamara. Would you trade Judy, JSN, and Palmer 2 firsts, 2 seconds for Tyreek and Keenan?
It's a lot.
It feels like a lot. I agree. Whew.
So it's single quarterback. How many teams in this league?
I'm scrolling through on the comments side, and I don't see any answer to that question. So 4 flexes. So this is probably a depth, and but this siphons off the depth. It siphons off your future to get, Keenan Allen has how many years left? 2. Tyreek Hill is going to retire in 2. So if these are 2 firsts from like 2024, I guess I don't mind. But if you dig into like a 2024 first and a 2025 first, and things go sour, you could really tank your team for a long time, with this type of
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, I'd be looking to sell Judy for what you can get for him. I'd be looking to sell Palmer because he's not going to continue producing, I don't think. When Mike Williams is back, when the Chargers decide what they're going to do with Quentin Johnston moving forward or how that wide receiver room is going to look. I don't think Palmer is part of that long-term plan for them. And I mean, depending on the size of the league, the number of teams, the value that those seconds will carry. In a start 9, Tyreek and Keenan will make a big difference in your starting lineup, but that
Can you get it down to
like,
1 first? Can you get it down to 1?
Yeah.
That's going to be.
If we can get it down to 1 first, then that's a deal I'd be more comfortable with. But if that's what the other manager is offering, I'm not sure if that's a deal that I'd be able to do. That's just a lot to give up.
Right. And at 4-2, you are like in playoff position, but still, does this move the needle for your team? I'm enough to be the champion overall. At least you're giving yourself, a stronger chance for sure, but it feels like a lot. I agree with you. So if we can get it down to 1, I think that's the move. Okay. We've got a DST question here. Native Ant, should we go with the Steelers or the Colts? Jake, Steelers defense, it's getting cooked. The secondary is getting cooked. Or are we going to go with the Colts secondary, who's also getting cooked?
I mean, those are 2 rough options. If those are the options, then I think I will put my chips in on TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith to get some sacks, get the pressure on Stafford, and hopefully force a few mistakes. But the Rams' offensive line has been a lot better this year, so it's not a high confidence start. But I think Steelers as opposed to the Colts. I would go Steelers there.
Yeah, and the Colts play the Browns. Deshaun Watson will be back. Amari Cooper played admirably last week against San Francisco. Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, will be able to hold their own, even if they're not super efficient. David Njoku seems like he's playing pretty well through the burns. So I think that there's, I think your higher upside play is the Steelers DST. Okay, will Devin Singletary take over the Texans backfield? Thinking about picking up before next week's waivers. I don't think he'll take over, but we have seen Dameon Pierce lose snap share, lose rush share, lose involvement over the last few weeks. But I don't think a takeover is in play. Singletary is just not talented enough for that. I would be surprised. I don't think that happens next week. What's your take, Jake?
Yeah, I don't really see Devin Singletary taking over this backfield. It is concerning to me that Dameon Pierce hasn't had the role we thought he might coming into the season. But I will say, KJ, just as a game theory perspective on this, if your league rules permit this, wait until like Monday Night Football to make that move if you want to stash Singletary, because he'll probably still be a free agent. And then if you can drop somebody who's already played their game this week, then wait till then to make that move.
Cool. Love it. Next, would we trade CD and Stevenson for Garrett Wilson, Hollywood, and Terry? I'm assuming this is redraft. I don't think I would. The best player in this deal is CD Lamb, I think pretty significantly. I mean, maybe it's based on how many starters you have, because Garrett Wilson, Hollywood, and Terry are all going to be starters for you, but CD offers the significant upside. So probably it depends. I hate that.
Yeah. And as an attorney, that's often the answer I have to give people, and it's the answer I'm going to give here. I do think that you could make a case that Zach Wilson has been playing not quite as horribly as we're accustomed to, and Garrett Wilson, as a result, may have a little bit of upside. We also know that Kyler's coming back next week, so Hollywood Brown could get a significant boost. His catch rate, he's been getting targets, but his catch rate is abysmally low so far. So I would expect Kyler's return to significantly improve Hollywood's efficiency. And Ramondre Stevenson for me, sorry, I'm kind of ping-ponging back and forth between the sides here. But the Ramondre side of things, he's just been so bad. Like he
is
has
very
not
bad.
been the same efficient, explosive running back that we saw last year. And I have concerns that he might actually start to lose work to Ezekiel Elliott, who
He has
hasn't
been.
looked as yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And so
Zeke has looked
like Zeke
okay.
yeah. And last week he had a 74-yard touchdown that got called back for holding, but 74-yard touchdown by Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, what year is it? But so for me, I can definitely see the case for the Garrett Wilson, Hollywood Brown, and Terry McLaurin side here. But depending on the number of starters you're required to have in this league, I may favor CD just for the elite upside that he has.
All right, there we go. So if you need depth, if you need flex plays, and you're okay with downgrading from CD Lamb, then we'll go with those three, because any one of those guys could have, a top 12 week and maybe two of them hit, versus CD Lamb, you're only taking one shot at getting a guy in the top 12, even if he has a better chance of doing it. All right, standard 12-man, Ayuk versus Minnesota, or Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Baltimore. Ooh.
Standard, I think Ayuk is the play here. With McCaffrey banged up, Minnesota's secondary is still bad. And Debo's also banged up. I don't think he practiced today either. So they're both questionable headed into Monday night. I think Kyle Shanahan is still going to draw up a great game plan like he normally does. And in standard leagues, I don't play in a lot of standard, but in theory, I try to concentrate on the big play ability, the explosive plays, the touchdowns. And since that's more what we're going for in a standard league, then I would favor him over Amon-Ra, who's more of a PPR low ADOT kind of play.
And from a macro perspective, the game total projected by DraftKings Sportsbook is higher for the San Francisco Minnesota game. That could easily turn into a big time shootout game. I mean, it's a long week in a dome at Minnesota. You mentioned this Minnesota defense is bad. Bounce back game for Brock Purdy is in play, especially given that Christian McCaffrey is very questionable for this game. You mentioned Debo. I think losing Trent Williams is going to hurt, and Minnesota has had some strong defensive line play here and there from Hunter and company. But I mean, Amon-Ra, it's so hard because he's so consistent. He's so consistent, and the offense does run through Amon-Ra, given that David Montgomery is out and Jahmyr Gibbs may be back in, but we know what Gibbs is going to give us. He's going to give us mid-pack running back too, right? Maybe he can spike a little bit, but the number one read in the offense for Detroit is always going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. But you mentioned the touchdowns. I want the shootout potential game with Ayuk versus Minnesota. Okay, we'll keep her rolling here. Javonte Williams, Rashad White, JSN, or Palmer. How do we rank them this week? I mean, I'll pull up my rankings. I don't do flex rankings. Fantasy Pros automatically syncs my running back, wide receiver, tight end rankings all together. So, I mean, I can just search and see Javonte is at 38 in my flex rankings. Rashad White is at 45. Smith and Jigba is like way out there in 87. And then Palmer is at like 58. So I think it was Javonte Williams who was the highest of those.
Yeah, and I think, as much as it pains me to say, JSN has to be at the bottom here.
Yes.
I know it's a soft matchup against Arizona, but the role hasn't been what we'd hoped for. He's being used exclusively pretty much in those 3 wide receiver sets, and we're not getting as much 3 wide receiver sets as we had hoped that spending that first round pick on him would indicate. So definitely JSN last for me. And then maybe depending a little bit on the scoring system as to Rashad White versus Josh Palmer for me. And I think Javonte versus the Packers is going to be our best play here.
Yeah, we know that the Packers are so susceptible to running back, and Denver finally sees Javonte Williams healthy. Jaleel McLaughlin is a nice story. I don't think he goes away. He's clearly going to play ahead of P. Ryan. In the pecking order, it's going to be Javonte, then Jaleel McLaughlin, and then P. Ryan. So if we're doing some rankings, that's how I would have it in the Denver backfield. Johnny D, 1 through 5 PPR pick 2. We've got Adams, Smith, Myers, or Christian Watson. Man, I would say Devontae Adams is one of the harder players to rank this week, given that he's been dealing with the injury. He's expressed his frustration publicly. I don't know how we can move away from, Myers as being the most consistent wide receiver in that offense. But my guy is Christian Watson this week. I think he breaks out. This is going to be a massive Christian Watson game against Denver. But the rest of them, Devonta struggled with an injury in practice this week. Devontae Adams has been dealing with injury. It's Watson and then who, Jake?
I don't know, man. I'm not a big Christian Watson guy, if I'm being honest. But
only the number 1 receiver in yards after the catch per attempt this year. The number 1 dominator wide receiver. He's top 16 in yards per route run, top 15 in air yard share. Like, this guy's getting it done through 2 games, and it could have been even bigger had he not gotten horse collar tackled.
Yeah, that's true. Those are all fair points. Plus he's playing Denver.
This is the Denver. This is going to be one of the highest over-unders on the week.
Yeah. I do wonder, though, if he sees Pat Surtain at all. That would be a concerning matchup for me, just because Surtain is more of a technical corner, and Watson doesn't really have that technical aspect developed as much yet.
Also, Jordan Love is not very good at throwing the football.
Right. Yeah. Love is, I think, still near the bottom of the league in adjusted completion percentage.
He's the worst. It's okay.
Yeah.
Nick's trying to be kind to the Packers fan over here, but let me tell you, this is a stat I've shared this week, Jake. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's wild and it's true. Christian Watson leads all wide receivers in the NFL in interceptions on targeted passes. He's only played 2 games. He's only played 2 games.
That's a pretty absurd stat. Yeah. So I know, and last time I was here, I pounded the table for the start your studs argument for Devontae Adams,
and you won.
The fact of the matter is, well, yeah, but
that was like his 45-point game, like, for what it's worth.
with Jarrett Stidham. So maybe we'll get the Super Bowl champion Brian Hoyer effect will
there we go
kick in, and Devontae will have his squeaky wheel game here against Chicago. But it's so hard to be confident in him with the way Jacoby is playing and the way this Raiders offense just doesn't seem as dependent on Devontae Adams anymore. So I think I would lean Jacoby for sure here. And then you mentioned Devontae Smith dealing with an injury.
Yeah, he had not practiced earlier in the week. I need to check an update, see if he had practiced later on in the week.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think he's off the injury report.
okay, that's good.
So I would play
Yeah,
Devontae.
the hamstring issue.
Okay.
But you're
yeah,
right. It was off the injury report.
I think assuming Devontae is good to go, that Eagles versus Miami is going to be a shootout. It's the highest total on the slate. And maybe AJ Brown is still squeaking despite his recent explosion. But I think it's Devonta Smith's turn for a squeaky wheel narrative game in a shootout game script. So I would go Devonta and I would go Jacoby.
Those are probably going to work out pretty well for you there, Jake. I also, as I said, I'm a big fan of the Christian Watson play. So I don't think you're going to go wrong with these wide receivers, but picking two of them, there's a lot of positive reasons for all of these. Unfortunately, you're going to have to make that decision, Johnny. Right. So if you guys are new and you haven't subbed to the channel, make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button. We're going to go at a faster pace here. I see that we are filling the chat. If you guys want to continue to throw your questions in the chat, we are here for y'all. Bam or Bazambo, full PPR. We got Evans, Warren, or Mitchell. I mean, we've talked about Evans and Mitchell ad nauseum. Give us your Jaylen Warren take here, Jake, since, you know, near and dear to your heart, Pittsburgh Steelers running back Najee Harris has underperformed significantly this year. In fact, I think it's true. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but Jaylen Warren has outscored Najee Harris in every single game. Is that true?
I'm not sure if it's every single game. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I do know that Warren has been extremely consistent in full PPR scoring. He had a slow start with week one, less than 7 points, but every game since he's scored 8 or more points, and he scored between 10 and 13 points in 3 out of 5 games so far this year. So I think Warren is a solid PPR play, especially if you just need that 10 points into your lineup and don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. You're not willing to wait for CMC versus Mitchell.
Right. So I would play Warren there.
And Evans is the odd man out. Yeah. Okay. We'll keep her moving. Tyler Atwood need to choose for my flex spot. We got Gabe Davis, Jerome Ford, and Ramondre. I mean, this is a Buffalo Bills New England game. The over-under is 40 for this game against the Patriots. We always know Gabe Davis has the high ceiling, but Ford probably has the decent enough floor. I would say it depends on what you need. If you're projected to lose by a lot, Gabe Davis is the play. But if you just need some safe volume, like 10 points, Jerome Ford's probably the best bet for you. Gabe Davis, though, is top 10 this year in best ball value rating. So how much he's contributed to your best ball team. Like, he's been surprisingly pretty good at doing that so far. I know it's touchdowns and I know it's deep plays, but if Josh Allen is not running, he's throwing the ball deep. So he's looking for Gabe Davis. He's looking for Stephon Diggs. I think I'm going to lean Gabe Davis. Let's just scratch it. Gabe Davis, no matter what. Let's go.
I'll go quite that bold. I do realize that Kareem Hunt was eating into Jerome Ford's role last week, and that is something to be concerned with and monitoring moving forward. However, I do think that the Browns offensive line has a great matchup against this Colts front, and Jerome Ford is one of the leaders in the league in yards after contact per attempt. He's been pretty good. So I would play Jerome Ford here in possibly a game script where the Browns run the ball and rely on their defense while Watson sort of eases back from the shoulder injury.
All right. We love it. let's get a special request here from Spud 2009. If you guys want to also prioritize your chats in these stardom situms, you can throw a couple bucks my way. You know how this works. Super chats are the way to go and get your questions answered. Defense is on bye, Jake. Do I drop a guy on my bench like Geno Smith, James Cook, KJ Osborne, Tazi Spears, Gabe Davis, Jay Williams? I'm not sure if that's Jamal or Jameson to add another defense, or do I keep my bench and play without a defense? If I add defense, who would you drop?
Well, I would never play without a defense unless you're so obscenely ahead in the projections that you're starting out 75% or better to win. I wouldn't go without a defense.
And then even then, usually you can add waivers. A lot have open waiver. A lot of leagues have open waivers. So if that's starting to shift mid game, like let's say it's shifting, you can pick up that defense, before the 4:00 games, or if you need, a Sunday night or a Monday type of game, that's like theoretically you can do those types of things. So if you're feeling like, oh, I actually do need those points, you can do that. But if we have to pick one, probably Osborne.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
I mean, assuming that Jay Williams is Jameson Williams.
I would have said Jameson Williams is the drop here. He doesn't seem to me to be destined for a full-time role in this offense. Josh Reynolds has been good, and Jameson Williams in his second game of the season actually saw his snap share decrease from 47% down to around 23%, I think. And so that decrease in role, it's very concerning for me. Maybe he has upside long term. Maybe he gets like a post bye week bump after their week 9 bye. But in a pinch, if I had to bet on one of these guys to survive next week's waivers to get back on your team, I would bet it's Jameson Williams.
Yeah, my vote is KJ Osborne. I understand the Jameson Williams concerns for sure because they've seeped in from last year. We were hoping that Jameson Williams would be a thing last year, but he did not increase the snap share like we wanted to last year, and now we've seen some struggles this year. So I understand that for sure. My argument, I guess, is the talent, the upside that exists. Like if Jameson Williams does hit, he's going to hit so much harder than KJ Osborne could. And I would rather have someone else dealing with this question of, should I start KJ Osborne? I want someone else to struggle with that decision. Because if Jameson Williams is at the point where I think I need to start him, like, yeah, I'm going to start him because he's proven to that upside. He's proven that role. I'd rather keep him for the contingency upside where we know KJ Osborne will here and there have a nice spike week, and we expect that he's going to continue to be involved, with Justin Jefferson being out for the next couple games at least. But I think we've identified those two as being the most likely to be dropped. I'm not dropping Gabe Davis, not dropping James Cook or Geno, absolutely not dropping Tazi Spears. Like Spears could be a league winner for you. That's how I'm viewing him. So of these, I think we're only disagreeing on who is last to second last here, Spud. So hopefully that's helpful for you. You can make that decision, listen to Jake and myself and make that choice on yourself. But the reality is we would usually not play without a defense. Okay. We'll also say Joe Castles, Moss or Keontae Ingram.
That one is tough for me.
Yeah, I'll pull up the rankings here. We obviously saw Moss lose a significant amount of work this past week to Jonathan Taylor. Taylor's trending upward, and Moss is trending downward. Keontae Ingram, You know, we saw Williams being used as as a significant
Just out of nowhere,
just
back from the
touch
dead.
leader. Right. We thought that. Do you remember the good old days where Darrell Williams was being traded for Damian Williams in our leagues? That was wild a couple of years ago. But yeah, Keontae Ingram, I was never impressed with his profile, his prospect profile. He was a late round running back. Not much there. I just want to hold on to Moss because we know what kind of role he can step into if Jonathan Taylor is out. You know, and I don't think Moss will completely go away. Well, but we have seen a diminished role. I think the more trustworthy play here is Moss.
Yeah, I think Moss is the hold your nose kind of play here. The Cardinals' backfield is like the Rams in terms of decipherability, except that it's a much worse offense. I love Josh Dobbs. He's been a very pleasant surprise for my Marquise Browns shares, but I do think that despite the tough matchup against Cleveland, that Zach Moss is probably going to be your higher floor and higher upside play this week.
Yeah, I have Zach Moss in the top 24 for this week. It's bi-week apocalypse, so of course these guys are getting bumped up. But for reference, Keontae Ingram, I have him outside the top 30. You know, so that's how I have it set up there, Joe. All right, we got a pick 2 here for Tyler Atwood. Full PPR pick 2, Donta, KJ, Samuel, or Palmer. KJ. I'm not.
Is that Curtis Samuel or Debo Samuel?
I'm assuming Curtis Samuel. I can check the live and see if there's some questions about that. See if there's some clarity. But Deonta or I don't know who KJ is. Who's KJ?
Osborne.
KJ Osborne.
Probably.
There we go. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Donta Foreman, KJ Osborne, Curtis Samuel, or Palmer. Curtis Samuel. Yeah, that's the Samuel. And KJ Osborne. Okay, good. We got some clarity there. Okay. Well, let me pull up the rankings. I can tell you. The cool thing about Fantasy Pros is not only I fit in I do but half PPR rankings for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and then it auto syncs them to PPR and it syncs them to the flex ranking. So I'm going to go to flex PPR and how they auto that. How can we not be starting Curtis Samuel? He's playing ahead of Jahan Dotson. He's getting usage in the goal line. He's getting rushes. He's getting downfield work. How can you not be playing Curtis Samuel in PPR? I think that's going to be a player that we need to be a little bit higher on regardless. So I think we look at, is it Foreman, who's going to get the volume in Chicago, KJ Osborne, who is not a great player, but he's going to get wide receiver volume in Minnesota that could be a shootout, or Josh Palmer, who is also not a very good wide receiver, but once again is stepping into that volume role. I think Donta Foreman gives us no, we want the shootout. We want the shootout with Chargers, right? I think that's the play. So Samuel and Palmer.
Yeah, I would go Samuel and Palmer as well.
Okay, very good. So hopefully that's good for y'all. If you want to prioritize your chats, you can do that with the super chats. You can do that on the YouTube for sure, as you guys saw. So let's take a look. A couple other questions in the chat. We're going to do some lightning round type of questions, just immediate responses here as I'm regaining my spot. If you guys like the content and find it helpful, smash the subscribe button. Jake has been such a gracious guest. Make sure you guys are following him at 16 Fabian Jacob on Twitter. Jake, while I'm getting the comments all set, any other promos, plugs, drops that you want to make?
And hey, check me out on X, formerly known as Twitter, at 16 Fabian Jacob. I haven't been as active this past week just because I've started working as an attorney. My cat has hopped in to say hello. So this is Truffle, everyone. Sorry about that. But yeah, I also work with a site called Losing Sucks, because we're all here to win this game, and losing sucks, so don't do it. So check us out there, Losing Sucks, on X and Twitter.
Cool beans. Yes, check out Jake's work. We're gonna continue to crank out some lightning round. JT or Devonte Adams? Is this the JT breakout week? Yes, let's go JT. This is the breakout week. Let's go. He's trending upward. We got the Packers question: Watson or Dubs?
Dubs for me.
I'm going Christian Watson. In the full-time Christian Watson rollback, Dubs struggled against the Raiders. So we'll see if that's just a blip or if it's going to be a long-term thing. I believe it's a long-term thing, but Jake has more confidence in Romeo Dubs. Dubs has played better this year. He has proven me wrong. I was very out on Dubs. I didn't take very much of him in best ball. He has played a lot better than I expected him to do or play the first couple weeks of the season. Let's see. Devontae, we get worried about Zach Moss. I mean, we talked about this, how Zach Moss is a top 24 running back, at least for me in my rankings. I get it, but, I think that we're looking at the trajectory of JT continue to be involved more and more over the last couple weeks. I think this is the Javonte breakout week. Let's see. El Pollo, the Chicken 33, full PPR. Who do I start? Mason McLaughlin, Evans, or Henderson? We've gotten a lot of these type of level running back questions so far. My vote is going to be Jordan Mason. Who is your guy here, Jake?
I think Mason.
Okay.
I've slowly talked myself in and out of the Zach Evans thing, and I don't know. It's because I told somebody Evans earlier, but
he's taking it back, almost taking it back.
Yeah.
We will continue to keep Jake on the live stream until he capitulates. Reynaldo, Rincon, Waller, or Laporta?
This one's Waller for me.
Ooh, why Waller?
So it's not as much pro Waller as it is. I'm just low on Laporta this week. The Ravens have been the top defense against tight ends, and for good reason. Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, they've been great in coverage, all above a 70 PFF grade in that regard. So I think Laporta is basically a TD or bust play this week. And the Commanders' secondary has really struggled with big physical pass catchers, and Waller is essentially the only person on the Giants who fits that description. So that's why I would be in favor of Waller this week.
I like that call. I did have Laporta ahead of Waller. I think this is more, let's move Laporta down a little bit and move Waller up. I think they're going to be closer than what I had initially set it up as. Although, to be fair, Evan Ingram played pretty well as my tight end 7 that I projected. So Evan Ingram has played. He's a player that I wish I had a little bit more exposure to as well. If CMC sits, I go Mason. If CSC plays, I go Darryl. Okay. Let's go Palmer, JSN, or Rashee Rice. I mean, Rashee Rice breakout game, right?
I did make that call, but I'm going Palmer here just because we're hoping that Rashee Rice can produce the 12 to 14 PPR that Palmer should be able to put up in a very high-scoring game.
Yeah, I'm here for the Rashee Rice breakout. I believe in his talent more than Palmer, and he played a season-high pass snaps this past week, so that role continuing to improve, build the trust, build a rapport with Patrick Mahomes. Give me Rice over the other two. Let's see. Flex option, Ford, Hunt, Foreman, or Evans. I think we go Foreman, given, Foreman over Ford.
Oh, I said Ford.
Foreman over Ford. Ford versus Foreman. I think the other two, Hunt and Evans, are definitely not the flex, though. Foreman, I think, is going to get more touches. Ford, I think the yards after contact per attempt is strong there. The Browns have had, some players banged up on their offensive line. Still there's an effective offensive line there for the Cleveland Browns. So, I mean, it's pick your poison, but Ford versus Foreman, I think, is going to be an interesting rankings. Let me pull up. Where do I even have them? I'm speaking completely off the cuff. I'm not referencing my rankings in this, but Foreman, wow, I had him much lower than I thought I did. I have my initial rankings have Ford over Foreman, but I guess I hadn't taken Roschon Johnson out before adjusting that. So I think I'm going to have Foreman over Ford when the dust settles. We'll keep her rolling here. Mark Folkman, shout out to you. Always checking out the Best Bell. If you're like Mark and you like quality content, make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button here on the Best Bell Fantasy Football channel, where we have gracious guests like Jake come on periodically and answer these questions. Sometimes we have topics, etc. It's been great having Jake on so far. Mark's asking specifically a tight end question. Jonnu Smith has played admirably. He's played sometimes better than Kyle Pitts. But Cole Kmet, Logan Thomas, David Njoku all been dropped this week. Do I drop Jonnu for one of these guys?
I don't know that you can rely on those other guys enough to drop Jonnu. But that said, I would play both Logan Thomas and David Njoku over Jonnu Smith this week. So if you've just been regularly streaming your tight end and you're not afraid that someone's going to scoop up Jonnu, then I might take the shot on Njoku this week.
Yeah, you mentioned Logan Thomas. He was left for dead in most fantasy drafts. He's had 2 top 6 tight end weeks in half PPR. Yes, he's coming off a dud against Atlanta, but a couple games where he's had 8 and 11 targets. I mean, in a Washington game against the Giants, this could be very interesting for Logan Thomas. Cole Kmet was going to be my pick, except Justin Fields is out. Right? Cole Kmet has been one of the best surprises. He's top 10 among tight ends in best ball value rating. He was being drafted tight end 15 or later in most offseason drafts. But given the downgrade at quarterback, I think Cole Kmet is left out in the cold for this week.
Yep.
Swerve, start a flex. Do we go Addison, Rice, or White? I think I'm going Addison in the shootout possibility.
Yeah, I think I would also go Addison there.
And Ricky AA, Keontae, or Latavius Murray. I already made the arguments for Latavius Murray, so I'm going Murray over Ingram.
Yeah, and I'm willing to play the TD roulette there with Murray.
All right. If Deshaun Watson plays this week, should I drop Howell to pick him up? Love is also available. I have Kyler on the IR. We are not targeting Jordan Love, at least long term. I'd rather have Howell, I think, even against the Giants.
So the way this is phrased, I almost wonder if Howell is his bench QB. If we're talking long-term stashes at quarterback, I'd prefer Watson long-term. But for this week, I prefer Howell out of those 3.
Yes, agreed. Do we go Moss or Ingram? It's clearly Moss. Hey, guys, who should I start if McCaffrey doesn't play, Evans or Henderson? Gross, George play 0-1.
I'll make my bed with Zach Evans there, but not happy about it.
Yeah, I'll be contrarian and go Darrell Henderson just with the continuity of the offense. But this is like you put a blindfold on, you throw a dart, and you're like, I hope I hit something. Someone's gonna get it. Maybe someone gets a touchdown. Maybe someone gets like 3 receptions for 40 yards. it's going to be ugly, I think. But my bet is Henderson. Jake goes Zach Evans there. Let's take a look. Okay. Is the Bears' backup quarterback able to get Foreman into the red zone for that touchdown opportunity? I mean, this is a valid question, RGQ. We have lots of questions about Bagent, okay? Even just how to pronounce his name.
Now, Bagent did, if I'm remembering correctly, lead an almost touchdown drive. But he ended up throwing an interception when he targeted DJ Moore at the end of it. But that was also against the Vikings. Well, but this is the Raiders. So yes. I'm thinking out loud here, but I wouldn't bet on Bagent being able to provide a lot of red zone opportunities this week. There's only been 4 Division II quarterbacks ever to start in the NFL. And Bagent being the 4th just doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence that this is going to be a good game for him or the Bears offense.
Yeah, it could get ugly, but Foreman is, I mean, I don't think the Bears are going to be completely kept out of the red zone. You're going to get some opportunity, probably just not as strong. I agree, being a little lower overall on the Bears. Let's look at the over under for this game. Right now it is, why is it not popping up for me? Vegas versus Chicago, 37.5. The implied point total is about 15 for the Bears. 15, 16, I think about 16 for the Bears. So it's not nothing. It's not a nothing burger, but there is a little bit of fear. 37.5 over under is about the same as the Commanders and Giants. So I don't know how we want to interpret. Maybe that's more speaking to the Commanders and Giants, Tyrod Taylor versus Sam Howell. But I'm not as worried. I think Foreman is still going to get volume. It's going to be a close game, and they'll just continue to run the rock with him. And we've seen in the past Foreman able to handle 25, 30 carries in a game when he was with Carolina last year and do that effectively. Foreman was he was top 10 in breakaway run rate last year, and he was top 30 in juke rate, and that was despite the being top 10 in stacked front carry rate last year. So even teams who are playing the run, he played well last year against them in the volume that he was receiving. So I'm not as worried given Foreman. And let's just take a step back. Like Foreman, shout out to him for coming back from the Achilles injury, where it was pretty much a death sentence for your NFL career if you suffered an Achilles injury. Now it's like Aaron Rodgers is like, I'm going to be back by the end of the season. Like,
yeah, I don't know how likely that'll be, but.
Okay, we'll keep her going. Tyrod Taylor is better for the Giants offense than Daniel Jones. I don't hate that take.
Is that confirmed for this week? Did I miss that?
Jones is officially questionable.
Questionable. Okay.
Yes, that's the last I heard was today, per the Fantasy Life app.
Okay, that's what I thought as well, but I wasn't sure. I think Tyrod Taylor is better though.
I don't hate that take. Laporta is tight end 1. Goff is the best quarterback in the NFC right now. Why wouldn't you go Laporta? I still have Laporta over Waller, but I did lower Laporta. But Jake is Waller in favor of Waller here. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep her moving. We are almost there. We've answered almost every question. We've gone over an hour. Jake has been so generous with his time. Devonta Smith or Christian Watson, must-win matchup. He is 1-5. Joaquin De La Guardia, 1-5 team, needs to win this week. Devonta Smith or Christian Watson. I think Jake's going Smith, and I'm going Watson.
Yeah, that's where I'm going is Devonta. I know it's been hard. You've probably started Devonta along the route to 1-5, and he's let you down a lot. But I think this is a great spot for him, and that's where I would go.
All right. I think we're down to some of the last questions here. Start Jalen Warren or Jerry Judy? Ooh, gross. I mean, it probably depends on what you need. Again, like we know what Warren is. He's 8 to 10 fantasy points. Judy can get you 20, but he can also get you 5 or 3. And so or 0. Like he could be a Steve Smith smack talk away from getting you 3 fantasy points. So I like
I'd play
swinging for
Warren.
upside. I like swinging for upside. I would say Judy, even though you know that the bust is very much in play. Okay. RGQ. Sorry, last question. Need Palmer, Rice, or Foreman? Let's go Rice.
We had a very similar one before, and I'm sticking with Palmer here.
Okay. And just a reminder that he needs to secure the win. LOL. So do all of us. Jake, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Once again, make sure you guys are following Jake on Twitter at 16FabianJacob. Any last words for our audience, Jake?
Just thank you so much, Brad, for having me on. It's been great answering these questions for you guys in the chat. It helps me get better, helps me think about these things, even for players that I don't have a lot of exposure to personally. So it's just a great time to hang out, and wouldn't want to spend my Friday any other way.
All right. Sounds great. Jake, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on, answering the questions. The people loved it. Lots of thumbs up, lots of viewers, lots of happy people. All right. Until next time. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to do another live stream. And then I'm going to do a live stream, and then I've got on this channel, and then I'm doing a quick hitting start sit on the Player Profiler channel tomorrow at 9 p.m. And then I'm actually cleaning up our homecoming for the school at 10 o'clock. So it's going to be a wild Saturday night. My wife is going to be out watching Taylor Swift movies at the theater, and I will be doing some fantasy football stuff. So make sure you guys are checking out all of those things. I'll be tweeting it out. All right. Until next time, everyone, good luck in the fantasy football streets.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.